Hey guys, David Clayton here with GuitarBreakdown.com, and today we are bringing you another Scott Henderson lesson. I'm going to try my best not to massacre this too much. Scott is a very difficult person to teach his style, for me at least, because to get it perfect, it's really hard to get a hold of his rhythmic timing and on his phrasing, because he is a master at rhythmic displacement and all that. And so he'll take a normal blues phrase that you're used to playing and you hear a million people play and they all play it the same way, maybe a little different or whatever, and Scott will play it 10 times and it'll be completely different each time, but it'll be generically it'll be the same phrase. So he does that with everything, and it's incredible. And he teaches about phrasing and timing and offsetting phrases and everything, and he's just a master at this. So I will try and do this justice, but forgive me if it's not exact. So what we're going to teach here today is the end of the song called Tore Down House. Now, this is off of the CD Tore Down House from Scott Henderson. It's a blues CD, and if you don't have this CD, I know I say this on a lot of things, but this is one of my favorite CDs, especially of Scott Henderson's. Now, he's got a ton of stuff between tribal tech and his solo stuff and Chic, Corea and all these things that he plays with, but I love this CD, and this is one of those CDs that stayed in my listening cycle for at least a year and a half to 2 years, with other things in between. But generally, I mean, I focused on this so much because there's so much to learn, and his tone on this CD to me is my favorite tone he's ever had. Now, if you don't have this CD, I will put a link below where you can pick it up, and it helps support Scott. One, it's a CD that you should definitely have in your collection, because from start to end there is so much good music on this, and there's so much to learn from it. Now, we're going to try and break down a couple more things on this CD, so again, it'll help if you have this to reference. But like I said, I'll put a link below to where you can find this, and I'll put a link to Scott's website if you haven't been there and you haven't seen any of our other lessons that talk about what Scott's all about, so you could go there. Also, if you look below in the description, there's a link to GuitarBreakdown.com's free lessons section of the website. It has all our free lessons categorized so you can find them easily. Plus, it has a lot more descriptions on what's going on in each section of the lesson. So if you want to jump to a certain part, you could see what's going on in there. And also there's some exclusive stuff that's not here on YouTube and you can only find over there. So check that out. There's a lot of really good stuff. And let's get into this lesson. All right, so what we're going to do is we're just going to break this thing down note for note, and we're going to go through it rather quickly. And then later we're going to dive into it and break it down section by section so that you can actually steal some parts of this and use it in your own playing. Just typically what you would do when you learn these things. You really want to grab a few of the ideas and incorporate them in your own playing as soon as you can. So the first thing to take note of, this is Scott's tuning down a half step in this. Now, I'm staying in standard tuning for this lesson for the sake of ease, because I know a lot of people don't want to tune down just to play along with this one thing that they're learning, and most people play in standard tuning. So, but I would suggest practicing or getting another guitar if you have a second guitar and get it set up, tuned down a half step, because it really is a cool thing. You would think it's nothing big, but it really does change the way you play and everything. It just Van Halen's played a lot of stuff down a half step. Scott does, Stevie Ray Vaughan. There's a million guys that do it, and it gets this really distinctive tone and sound, and it's something you might want to experiment with. But again, in this lesson we are standard tuning, so don't worry about that. Now, another thing, if you like this video, definitely click like, and if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. All this stuff really helps us know that you like what we're doing and you want to see more. And the other reason to really click like for this video is we are trying, we're not too far along with it, but we are hoping to get Scott Henderson to possibly do some guest spot here. We've had Phil X do some stuff. We've had Alan Hines. We got a DVD for Alan Hines coming out soon, and we're going to announce that, or a downloadable package kind of thing. But we're also trying to hopefully get Scott to do some stuff here, because he's amazing, amazing teacher, amazing guy, and he has a wealth of knowledge to share, and we're hoping to get him to share some of this stuff. So if you guys like this video, it lets us know that you really are into those kind of things. Also, head over to GuitarBreakdown.com and give us your email address so that we can let you know when these events actually happen. We'll never do anything with the email addresses like sell them or do anything seedy with them, so you can be sure that you're safe there. But also, in an email to us, when you give us your email address, if you want, in the comments, let us know what you would like Scott Henderson to teach, or what questions you might have for him. So if we do get him to do some lessons here or some kind of guest thing here, we can go through those questions and possibly get him to answer some of your own questions. So anyway, enough of that. Let's get to the lesson. All right, so the first thing that Scott plays in this ending of Tore Down House is it's a series of chords, and he's skipping strings, so you're getting some intervals of the chords, which is a really cool thing. Eric Johnson does it, a lot of guys do it, but it really makes the chords sound nice and open. These are kind of basic chords, but there's a cool little walking bass line going on, and the first chord is a C minor chord with a G in the bass, so it's basically a C minor chord with its fifth in the bass. So actually you start with an open note, an open E string. Then you play the G, which is the third fret of the E string. So you have. Then you can bar the first fret of the D, G, and B string, but these first few chords, maybe all of them, you don't play the G string, so you're skipping strings. So essentially you're playing the E string, you skip the A string, you play the D string, skip the G string, and you play the B string. And the notes are, again, open string E, third fret of the E string, then the D string first fret, and then the B string first fret. And you walk up and down that. You go. Okay, really simple. But he's got this little feel to it where it kind of speeds up on the last note. So it's. Okay. So now the second chord, it's the same shape, but then it lowers. Instead of the third fret, you're playing the second fret, which is the G flat. And then you're just going to lower it one more step, another half step to the first fret, and you're playing the first fret on the E string, first fret D string, first fret B string. So everything so far has the first fret on the D and B string, and the bass, so you have this, and the bass line's going, right? Very simple. But that last time when you're on that F, the first fret of the E string, you only go up those notes. You don't come back down. Okay, so the whole thing slow is. Now the last chord, it goes to an open E string, and then it goes to the first fret of the G string and third fret of the B string. So the whole thing together is. Now what he does there, I think, I could be wrong, but it sounds like when he lets that ring out, he slides those two notes up on the G and the B string. Then he plays an open E string. And then he plays this A7 chord. Or he may not play that low A note, but he definitely plays those notes. So you can have your second finger on the A string. The second finger on the E string, A note, 5th fret. Then you're skipping the A string, or I guess in theory you could play that. And then with the third finger, you're going to bar the D, G, and B string on the 3rd fret. So it's basically just an A minor 7 chord. But you're just going to hit it really hard, right? So the whole thing is. Okay, so real quick before we move on, what he's doing with these chords, again, the first chord is a C minor with a G in the bass. The second one can be considered a G flat diminished 7. The next one could be an F7 chord, F dominant 7 to an E dominant 7. right? So you have, right? It's very simple concept, very simple chords, but a really cool walking bass lines because he's just basically going from the G, going down in half steps to the G flat, to the F, to the E. Now, what Scott does a lot is he uses the wham bar, whammy bar, wang, whatever you want to call it. And he gets a lot of great vibrato going on with chords, but in his solos too. We have a lot of lessons if you want to check out some of our previous lessons. Again, go to guitarbreakdown.com, the free section, and there's a section for Scott Henderson, and we got a bunch of lessons there. So what you'll see is he uses the whammy bar a ton, and in this he does with the chord here. I don't think he uses it until the last chord, but you'll hear it when he goes. So on the last chord, he uses that, and he gets a nice, smooth, round vibrato. Right? It's not anything crazy. Now, another thing to take notice of, besides the nice, smooth vibrato that's going on there, is he's playing very dynamically, and everything he does, great player, most great players do this. They play a little harder, they pick harder, softer, all that kind of stuff. So what he's doing here, when he's walking down these notes, he's kind of getting a little louder on those bass notes, and then when he hits that last chord, he kind of lightens up a little bit, even though it's still pretty dynamically loud. Then he hits that hard, really nice and loud. Then he gets into this thing where you could think of it as A minor pentatonic. So he bends up the 8th fret a whole step, and then gives it vibrato too, and that's on the B string. So you have, but he doesn't give the vibrato until it gets all the way up to that whole step. So it's, and then he adds the vibrato. So it's, then he just walks down the pentatonic scale from the 5th fret of the E string, then the 8-5 on the B string, then the 7-5 on the G string. Then he slides up from the 7 to the 9 on the G string. So, and then he plays the 7th fret on the D string. And again, that's all minor pentatonic. Even this note is in that shape. Right? And he may pull off this note, I'm not really sure. So he has now here he does this cool little thing where he plays, again, he lets it ring out as a chord sort of. He plays the 8th fret on the A string and then the 5th fret of the D string. And then, so he gets this nice dissonant sound. And then he plays both the 5th fret of the D and G string together while still having that low 8th fret of the A string ringing. So you have, and he gets some vibrato in there. So far you have, now, after he hits those two notes on the 5th fret of the D and G string, he goes back down to that 8th fret of the A string, and then he slides up on the 5th fret to the 7th fret, back to the 5th fret, barring both the D and G string. So that whole thing is, and then after he slides up and down that, he he goes back down to the 8th fret of the A string again, and then he plays that double stop again on the 5th fret of the D and G string. So slowly at that bend part, it's... Now again, listen, really focus on those dynamics, because he's not hitting everything the same with the same intensity. It kind of goes. I'm not going to get it perfect, but this is kind of what it goes like. So you hear him hit that really hard, then a little lighter at that last chord stab. All right, guys, I hope you're getting a lot out of this lesson, and there's so much more to learn from it. We've got a few more parts to this series of lessons. Just head over to guitarbreakdown.com, go to the free guitar lessons section, find Scott Henderson's name. There's a thumbnail there. Click on that, and you will find all his lessons there. And you will find the one to this Tore Down house, and all the parts will be there with descriptions of what's going on in each one of those lessons. So I will see you over at guitarbreakdown.com. Thanks.